where news comes first. This is ABC-7 Xtra.
Good evening, I'm Saul Saenz, and this is ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition. Happy Easter. I want to personally thank you for permitting us into your homes this Sunday evening as you prepare for your work week. Tonight, we have a special treat for you, reading pleasure. Benjamin Saenz is a former UTEP professor and now an acclaimed author and poet. Saenz is the first Hispanic winner of the PEN/Faulkner Award and American Book Award winner. Most recently, Saenz became the recipient of the 2023 Texas Medal of Arts Award in the literary arts category. Raised on a 20-acre farm in Las Cruces, Saenz first earned notoriety for his poetry, winning the American Book Award. But it's his novel, the work on his novel, Aristotle and Dante Discover the Universe, that earned him Time Magazine's 100 Best Young Adult Novels of all time. He sold the movie rights to that book, which was turned into a movie produced by Hamilton and In Heights actor and playwright Lin-Manuel Miranda. In fact, if you prefer audio over hard copy, Miranda narrates the entire book. The shot of the book I'm holding, that I'm about to hold in just a second, is his latest work, Aristotle and Dante Dive into the Waters of the World, which I was able to buy at Barnes & Noble. This book is ranked #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list of young adult hardcovers. Please join me in welcoming El Paso author Benjamin Saenz. Thank you so much for taking time to talk to us. I've been looking forward to this. First and foremost, let's dispel any idea, any thought whatsoever that we're related and that we know of. We merely share a last name, right? We've been talking about this.
Yeah, share a last name.
Well, it's not unusual in the Hispanic community for a lot of people to have the same last name and not actually be related. But I want to talk first about your novel, Aristotle and Dante Discover the Universe. It is set in El Paso. Love the Memorial Park swimming pool reference, by the way, because I remember those days. This is a boys' coming-of-age novel, but they also discover they're different from other boys. Is that correct?
They do. And, you can feel different for many reasons. Some people are loners.
Which they are.
Yeah, and some people are, and some people are stoners. Some people are this. And you find your own little. You feel different, but you find your group at school often of other like-minded maybe people who just don't feel like that they belong. And Ari doesn't feel like he belongs because, well, he has an issue with his family because no one talks about his brother who's in prison, and he doesn't know why. They don't. Almost like he doesn't exist.
Right.
And he's kind of like an only child because his siblings, his brother and his two sisters, are 10 years older than him.
27 years old, right?
And so he's like an only child, and he's trying to find his way in the world, and he doesn't like himself very much. Later on, of course, he discovers Dante. He meets Dante, and they become best friends. And Dante's so different. He says things like, "Would you ever run away from home?" And Dante says, "No." Why not? He says, "Because I adore my parents." And he thought to himself, who says that?
A novel concept for him because he pretty much questioned his father, who was pretty much silent. He didn't talk very much, although he did adore his mother. And that's one of the things, after talking to you and you were describing your mother, that I caught right away, is that you also had a special relationship with your mother, as did...
And my mother is very much like this woman. Ari's mother is a school teacher.
Yeah.
My mom wasn't a school teacher, but my mom was very smart. And she was my teacher. She was, very much my teacher. I used to do homework on the kitchen table as she, made tortillas and cooked. She made tortillas every day after work. And I would ask her questions sometimes. And she'd look at me like, why are you asking me these questions? Like at one time I asked her, Mom, I get why Dad married you. Now, why exactly did you marry Dad?
That's in the book.
Yeah, no,
that's in the book.
Yeah, because that is the question. That is the question. And my mom was really taken aback by this. She really was. And she looked at me, and she put down the tortilla roll, and she looked at me, and she goes, it had this look on her face, like, why do I have a son that asks impossible questions? and finally she said, well, your dad was beautiful. He was the most beautiful man I'd ever met.
That's in the book.
And I thought to myself, Mom, That is so shallow.
Let's move on to all these awards that you've gotten, because you have received multiple awards, and I don't know if you expected them when you were a professor at UTEP and you were writing poetry, but growing up, who did you look up to? Because there weren't that many acclaimed Hispanic writers or authors in that time. In fact, your novel, your mother talks about how she never had an Hispanic professor to look up to when she attended college, something that I can relate to as well, because the school that I went to, there weren't that many Hispanics.
No, even Las Cruces High School, I remember I had very few Hispanic teachers. I remember Mrs. Sepulveda, who taught us biology, and Mrs. Skaggs. She'd married a gringo, but Martha Skaggs was from San Elizario, and taught us Spanish. But we didn't have many Spanish-speaking professors or teachers. And in terms of books, I don't think Rudy Anaya's Bless Me Ultima came out when I was practically graduating from high school. So I didn't have any books I would say, well, these books are about me. But somehow that didn't bother me, because I could read Great Expectations and I could be Pip, so I was El Pipo, and I could put myself in there, and which made me a generous reader, because I didn't expect things to be about me or mirror me, and yet somehow I felt that they did mirror me. And so I really, when I started writing for young adults, I thought, I'm going to write these novels so that Latino males will read. I did not succeed. But that's not who reads my books. I remember I was in Paris to give a reading to young people, and there was 300 young people at this reading. 275 of them were young women, and 25 were young men.
No.
So who reads my books? Really young women. I'm not saying that young men don't. I'm just saying the majority of people who read my books are still young girls for that age, because that's who reads. But I have to say, some of the people who read my book are people I want them to read my book, and they are children, young people who are gay, or lesbian, or trans,
LGBTQ.
And from that community, and they feel like, oh, I'm not alone in the world.
You've opened up some windows. We're going to take a really quick break, but when we come back, I'll ask Benjamin about his book being on the banned book list, the reason why, and if this has either hampered or helped sales. Benjamin signs his response when we come back. You're watching ABC-7 Extra, Sunday edition, where news comes first.
Let me help you with that. I'm good, man. Thanks. Are you sure?
Everyone can use a little help. Volkswagen Tiguan with Front Assist. Get 4.9% APR financing for 60 months on the 2023 Tiguan S, or lease one for just $289 per month. Limited inventory available.
You know the name. You've heard the song. But until you've seen it live, you haven't experienced the magic of Cats. It's the memory shared by millions. Cats.
Coming to the Plaza Theater May 5th through 7th. Tickets available at Ticketmaster.com.
Hello, ma'am. I'm here with Acme Solar. We're here in the neighborhood installing solar panels, and I'm here to offer you a great deal.
Did the solar company you hired not complete the job they promised? Hi, I'm Martin from Soltec Energy. As a businessman for 30 years, this is not the way we do business. Soltec Energy is A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, and we have a great reputation in our community. We never use subcontractors to install, and we don't get paid until your system is complete. Call Soltec Energy or visit us online for help with your existing system or for a new install. We're here to help.
There are a lot of vehicles on the road with jobs to do. They come in different shapes and sizes, but they have one thing in common. If their flashing lights are activated on the roadside or shoulder, the law says move over a lane or slow down to 20 miles per hour below the posted speed limit. Remember, when vehicles have flashing lights activated on the shoulder, move over or slow down. Be safe. Drive smart.
Why are there 2 extra seats? I know, Uncle Dane and his giant beard.
The Volkswagen Atlas with best-in-class third-row legroom. Visit your local Volkswagen dealer for 4.9% APR financing for 72 months on a new 2023 Atlas or Atlas Cross Sport.
Welcome back to ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition. I also want to welcome back my guest, author Benjamin Alires Saenz. Mr. Saenz is a recipient of several awards for his masterful writing. His writing has also captured the attention of Hollywood. I'd like to read an excerpt from your book, Aristotle and Dante Discover the Universe. Storms always made me feel so small. Even though the summers were mostly made of sun and heat, summers for me were about the storms that came and went and left me feeling alone. Did all the boys feel alone? The summer sun was not meant for boys like me. Boys like me belong to the rain. I want to ask you what you meant by that, because it's pretty deep for people like me. That's pretty deep.
Well, when I say belong to the rain, that means the sun is gone, but for me, and so that rainy days, you know, are like gloomy, and we think of that. But in the desert, we don't necessarily think that. You know, I love the rain. The rain is really incredible for me here, and I love the storms here, and I feel like I belong to the rain. I think when it rains, you know, the earth opens up, the desert opens up, and it smells so beautiful, and it's incredible, and I love the desert, and it's a place where you encounter your demons and your God. As the Bible has it, and I think that's true. You got into the desert, and there's no one there except you, and you have to confront yourself. And Ari, I think, was saying, boys like me belong to the rain. What he's saying is like, it's another language. He speaks another language. If boys like him belong to the rain, usually you say sunny days. You think of, you know, belong to the summer sun and that kind of thing. But for him, it means that. He has to live in a more underground life
because of his
sexuality, which he's just discovering, and he doesn't know the implications of that either.
Right. Let me ask you another question. In reading your biography, I see you also studied theology. Were you thinking of becoming a priest?
I was a priest.
You were a priest.
I used to be at Santa Lucia here, and
really?
And Our Lady of the Light for just a few seconds. But yes, I was a priest, and discovered that I hadn't really another vocation, and that was to be a writer. Yeah. And I followed that vocation because that's what I was meant to be.
Yeah. Let's get to that the tease before we went to break. Your book is being banned because in several sections of the nation because of its sex and young gay relationships. Now, has this helped or hindered your sales? And is it even something you think about actually?
Well, I think about it only because like who are they keeping from reading the book? Kids who can't afford to buy them and can only find them in a library. And if it's banned in their library, where are they going to find it? Where are they going to get it? And that's not fair. And you know what? You would think that my book was so immoral and all that. And it's not. They're the sweetest kids in the world, these two kids. They are, and their friends are sweet. And they're good people, and they're decent people. And I think that there's just offhand, some people will dismiss you if you're gay, and they dismiss you if you're Latino, and I'm both. Well, two reasons to get dismissed, but they don't know anything about me. They don't know, you know, and they just have these prejudices. They have an idea that we all live a certain kind of lifestyle. You know, what lifestyle I live, I write all the time. Yeah. But I think that it's a bigotry against people who are gay, and that's not fair, and again, it doesn't lead us to an understanding of each other.
And as you well know, there's multiple, I guess, legislatures across the country who are pushing for the anti-LGBTQ. They're pushing for bills that are anti-LGBTQ. It's happening in Texas. It's happening in other states. Your thoughts on that?
Well, you can't really keep people from reading things they want to read, because and banning books, there's no place in America to ban books. This is an idea, we should be about ideas, and they can't legally keep these books from being printed. We're going to be read, and if we're good, a lot of people are going to read us.
As you are, yeah.
And a lot of people read me, and it hasn't hurt my sales at all, but sometimes it doesn't really make me angry. It hurts that they would dismiss me just because they refuse to stop being bigots. I'm not a scary person, you know. I'm really not. I'm kind of ordinary, and I'm kind of a dork. I do like to cuss, I have to say that.
A self-proclaimed dork.
Yeah, I do like to cuss, and I've always liked to cuss because I get that from my father. But I'm not like this horrible man, and I'm not immoral, and I'm not any of those things that they imagine me to be. And
do you think that's how you're viewed because they ban your books and because
yeah, I do,
of the movement that's headed in that direction, anti-LGBTQ? Do you think that's how you're viewed?
I think they do. I don't know how they view us, but when I write books, we're so ordinary. I don't perform my own ethnicity on the page. They're just Latinos, and they're just people.
Yeah.
And I don't perform my own sexuality on the page. They're just people.
Yeah.
But my books aren't about being Latino. They're not about being gay. They're about people who are Latino or who are gay, and they live their lives and the struggles that they have as human beings. And that's what we should be writing about. Is that every heart struggles against itself. Mm-hmm. And we all fight our own private wars, as I say in the book. And we do. And we need to find that we're connected to each other and find those connections and hang on to each other for dear life because we need each other.
You're very proud of your Hispanic heritage, of your Mexican heritage, and I noticed while reading your book that you do use a lot of terms like pocho and que guapo and all those terms, but your book is also translated into several different languages. How does that
28 different languages.
How does that get across when you use terms like that?
I don't know, and I don't worry about it because that's the translator's job. I write it the way I write it. And it's true, I am very proud to be. I'm a son of the border, and I like to say often to people, I am proud to be the son of a people who have helped make this country great and have never been properly thanked for the job that they have done.
Okay. Thank you so much. We're going to take another quick break. When we come back, I'll read an excerpt from Benjamin Saenz' latest novel, Aristotle and Dante Dive into the Waters of the World. I'll ask Mr. Saenz if there are other novels in the works and what we can expect. We'll be right back.
Good news. No matter what you choose, you save. Carl's Jr.'s all-day 2 for $5 deal lets you pick 2 tasty items, like our savory cheeseburger, spicy chicken sandwich, chicken stars, or French toast dips for just $5. Only at Carl's Jr.
You know what's even better than having my restaurant, Morramia, winning Best of the Border? My credit union won too. Winning an award like Best of the Border just sets the bar even higher for us. This 2023, we're prepared to give our best. Congratulations, First Light. You are my credit union, and I couldn't have done this without you.
Watch Smart Money Thursday on ABC-7 at 4 with Myro Capital Management. You'll learn how to save money the right way and make better decisions to set you and your family up for financial success. Smart Money Thursday on ABC-7 at 4, sponsored by Myro Capital Management.
These aren't just vehicles or car parts. They're promises.
Hey, thank you so much for choosing Viva.
To keep you safe on the road, to get you to and from work or play. No one at the Viva Auto Group ignores a promise, or over-promises, or makes an empty promise. We keep them. A promise is a reason why the Viva Auto Group is a mainstay in El Paso and Las Cruces with 8 dealerships and service departments. Because a promise means everything to us and to you.
ABC-7's Sunday Extra brings you context, depth, and perspective you won't find anywhere else. Join Saul Saenz Sunday nights at 10:35 for the Borderland's only in-depth discussion on issues that matter to you.
Good news. No matter what you choose, you save. Carl's Jr.'s all-day 2 for $5 deal lets you pick 2 tasty items, like our savory cheeseburger, spicy chicken sandwich, chicken stars, or French toast dips for just $5. Only at Carl's Jr.
Welcome back to this third and final segment of ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition. I also want to welcome back my guest, author Benjamin Alirez Saenz. Mr. Saenz is a recipient of several awards for his masterful writing. His writing has also captured the attention of Hollywood, and I'd like to read an excerpt from your latest novel, which is Aristotle and Dante Dive into the Waters of the World. It says, quote, I wondered if Dante and I would ever be allowed to write our names on the map of the world. Other people are given writing instruments, and when they go to school, they're taught to use them. But they don't give boys like me and Dante pencils or pens or spray paint. They want us to read, but they don't want us to write. What will we write our names with, and where on the map will we write them on? What did you mean by that?
And that is the question. That
pretty deep question.
Not just gay people and trans people and people with orientations other than the heterosexual norm, but other people as well are different. And where will they have to make space for themselves? Because we won't make a space for them because we're threatened by them, and we're so easily threatened. And why? And so we will write where we will write, and we will write our names, and people will know that we have been here, and we were here, and that we loved, and we hated, and we breathed, and we struggled. And I think of the immigrants that come to this country and how brave they are. How brave they are to come here, and we tell them, this is the greatest country in the world. Why shouldn't they want to come here? When we tell them that, what do you think? They don't want to come here? We sell this place to them, and then when they buy our bill of goods, we hate them, and that's sad. Yeah. Because those immigrants are brave and beautiful, and they help make this country great.
I want to talk about something that touched the entire world, the pandemic. You said that you wrote this book during the pandemic, and was it different writing during the pandemic, during, quote, normal times, and how so?
No, it was, but it was interesting because I was writing this book, and the era of that book is the AIDS pandemic. Mm-hmm. And so there was a kind of a mirror there for me as I was writing, and I did remember that all pandemics have something in common. They make people afraid of each other, and they make people, and it brings out generosity in some people, and brings out really small and mean-spiritedness in other people. And I thought, well, to write about the AIDS thing is that, and because all the people marched. Mm-hmm. I don't think that gay men were ever as hated as that period, because people were afraid they're going to give us this disease, keep them away from us. They were afraid of them for that, and they were afraid of them for one other reason. When they marched in the cities of America, they said, "Oh my God, there are so many of them. And why are we afraid of our children? We are your sons. We're your daughters and we're your sons. Why are you afraid of us? We didn't. You taught us to be heterosexuals, and we're not. Why is that? Because we were born like this, and we don't know why. But we're not scary.
Yeah.
Not scary at all.
Now you taught at UTEP. In fact, I think
23 years.
You told me that one of your students was our primetime anchor, Stephanie Valle, and she was one of your students. Do you feel
she's great? Yeah, I like Stephanie.
Do you feel that you made an impact on your budding authors now that you've retired, and quite frankly successful, or did you make a bigger impact now that you're an acclaimed author? Was it professor or author that you made the biggest impact?
That's hard to say because the impact is different.
Yeah?
It's just different. But I will tell you, I know that I've made an impact in a lot of young people's lives because they message me, and I don't know them. But I love the classroom. I really, my students were great.
You miss it?
I do. No, I don't think that this community knows how beautiful our young people are. They're amazing. They were so, I don't know, moving to me. And they're very charming and lovely people.
So the question that begs to be answered, why retire?
Well, because you can't do everything. And
you probably couldn't dedicate as much time to writing.
And I have to write, and I travel, and I write, and I paint, and you know what? And I was still good at what I did when I retired. And so I left at the top of my game, and that's good. You don't want to be this old guy hanging around, and that teacher tells you, oh, the students say, oh, I have to take that old geezer. You don't want that.
Well, I think that's how many feel about me here at the station. The old geezer still hanging around. But let's talk about what's next. What are you working on right now? And you don't have to tell me specifically. Is it yet another edition of Aristotle and Dante?
No,
or are you moving on?
No, I'm moving on right now. I'm writing a novel about a school shooting.
Oh my God.
And it's not about the shooting. It's about the aftermath of it and the survivors of kids who lived through it and what their lives are like and how they're in such pain and they have to learn to live again. And we need to think about the victims that we create are not just the people who die. but the people who feel like they're living dead afterwards. And I know something about that because my niece was killed in a bowling alley in Las Cruces when she was 13. And I know what that does to a family. And I know the pain of it, and I know it never goes away. The pain always comes back. And it's it's like the wound never really heals. And I think we should know that.
So you want to stick to that genre, young adult readers?
I love writing for young people. I'm also writing a book of poems. That's an adult thing.
For writers or people who want to be a writer one day or publish one day, what's your best advice?
Write well. Learn to write. Know your craft. Be disciplined. If you want to be a writer, then you better have discipline and desire, and you better have it in spades, because that's what's going to take. You can't just want to sell a book. You can't write a book because you want to be famous. You can't write a book because you want to make a lot of money. You don't know you're going to be famous. You don't know anything. But what you do know, and what you do control, is your work. Make it count. Make it good enough so that editor can't say no. Be that good.
Benjamin Alida Saenz, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us. And I want to thank you for sharing your Easter Sunday evening with us. As an avid reader, I recommend this book. I do really recommend this read. Spoiler alert, it has some action in it, has thought-provoking moments, but more importantly, if you're an El Pasoan like me, it'll bring back memories of some of the places that you visited in the Borderland. For me, it was the Memorial Park swimming pool. Good night y buenas noches.
Thank you for watching. ABC-7 News is now available on any of these streaming services, as well as the KVIA News and KVIA Weather and Traffic apps.